Hi, I'm Sonia, and welcome back to my channel, Sonia on Being 60. Today, I'm going to make a recipe. I want to low carbify a dessert that my mom used to make, and that is the English trifle. So I'm going to make the traditional trifle that my mom used to always make, and I'm going to make a lower carbohydrate version of that trifle. And tomorrow my kids are going to come over for dinner, so I'll let them do a little taste test and see how the lower carb version measures up. The first thing that I have to do is I have to make the low carb angel food cake. For the traditional English trifle that my mom used to always make, it was pretty much everything was packaged. You know, the angel food cake, always bought from the store. There's fruit cocktail, there's custard. We use the Bird's Eye custard powder. You just mix it up with some milk. But everything low carb is going to be a little bit more made from scratch. The first thing I did though for the cake was I had to take my sugar and powder it. The recipe calls for a powdered allulose monk fruit blend type of sugar, and I don't have that brand. So all I did was I took my Lancanto erythritol monk fruit blend and I put that in a blender and just, mix it up for a few seconds and it powders up very nicely. And then I had some powdered allulose. So I'm just using a mix of half and half, and I will link the recipe that I'm using below so you know exactly the measurements of everything should you wish to try this cake. And then I just put it through a little sieve just to ensure I got rid of all the little lumps and that there were no granule pieces, left over. The next step that I'm doing is I'm just going to sift my flours. Again, we just want things super fine when they get, incorporated into the egg whites. Okay, so I have sifted my flours. It's almond flour, coconut flour. That's done. So now the next step is to separate my eggs. I have 12 eggs. I need to separate the yolks from the whites. I'll save the yolks because I'll use them in any other recipes or in my omelets. They won't go to waste. And then it'll be time to mix it up in the blender. So I don't have a fancy egg separator. I just do it by hand, kind of the old-fashioned way, and always hope that I don't get the yolk, into the white, like I just did. Yep, made a boo-boo, gotta start over. Oh well, that's life. Those things happen. Okay, so I've split my 12 eggs, and I just want to mention too that the eggs do have to be at room temperature in order for them to, froth up and whip up nicely. I've had them sitting out at room temperature for a couple of hours. Now, if you forgot to take them out of the fridge or just didn't have time, you can always run the eggs under warm water and that will bring them up to room temperature as well. So now I'm just going to beat these and I'll show you what the peaks look like once I've beaten them, and I'm also going to add in some cream of tart. Okay, so I've whipped up my eggs and they should just, they're not supposed to be like stiff peaks, but they should just fold over. So they look good. And so with the egg whites, there's some cream of tartar, some vanilla, and about half of the sugar the powdered sugar. So now I'm just going to gently fold in the flour and the remaining sugar mixture. And then I have my Angel Food tube pan. It's not greased, but I did put a little bit of parchment paper at the bottom. And then that will go in the oven. So while my angel food cake is baking, I'm going to go ahead and I'll start constructing the typical English trifle. And it begins with chopping up 2 ounces of Brazil nuts that I'll chop up. And then what we do is we take our angel food cake, just tear it up into chunks, and I'll put it in my bowl. Put the nuts on top, just kind of give that a bit of a mix so that it all gets mixed together. And then we make Jell-O. So I need a large package. They didn't have any large packages in the store, so 2 small ones. We make the Jell-O, and then we incorporate it into, we add it to the angel food cake nut mixture, and then that sets, and then we continue, making the rest of the trifle. So the trifle actually does, it usually is either a full day or 2 days, because you do have to let, the Jell-O firm up. That takes a few hours, and then custard will go on top of that. And the custard has to be cold, so you've got to cook it and then cool it, and that again will take a few hours to do. Okay, so I've chopped up my nuts, and I've put my cake in the bowl, and it's just like I've just kind of torn it apart. I'm using about 3/4 of the cake, and into that I just put the nut mixture and just kind of mush it around a bit so the nuts get incorporated a bit or spread out a bit evenly. Okay, so Jell-O's made and it's put on top of the cake and the nuts. This now goes in the fridge and it just sets for a few hours. Now I know you're probably thinking like, it's kind of an odd combination. Don't think I've ever seen a trifle made like this. And that may be true, but I gotta say, it's delicious when it's all finished, and when you take a big scoop of it, it is really yummy. Okay, so now I'll make the traditional custard for the trifle, and again, I'm doing this ahead of time, and I'll put it in the fridge. And what we're using for the traditional custard is this Bird's custard powder. It's what my mom always used, and there's a little bit of sugar in there, and then about 2.5 cups of milk. So we just slowly whisk in the milk, and then I'll bring it over to the stove, and you just keep whisking it until it gets to be a good consistency, and I'll show you that when that's done. Okay, so the custard is now ready, and it's just a nice consistency. Really, all you do is mix those ingredients all together, just whisking continuously, and bring it up to a boil. And scrape out everything here. And now all I do with this is I put some cling wrap, saran wrap on top of it, kind of mush it down a bit so it doesn't get a fill. And then it's done, and it goes into the fridge. The angel food cake has just come out of the oven. This is what it looks. So no idea if it's going to come out, but I will just turn it upside down and just leave it like this for a while, just to let it loosen. And if it doesn't come out in one piece for this recipe, as you saw with the earlier angel food cake, we just rip it up anyways. So it'd be nice if it did come out in one piece, but if it doesn't, it's okay. So now I'm going to make the low carb custard, and I will put the recipe in the description below. And for this one, again, we need to separate some eggs. Now, had I been paying attention and read through the recipes, I would have realized that this recipe, I need 6 egg yolks. So I need to now crack another 6 eggs, because the other egg yolks, the 12 from the cake, well, they're all mushed up and they're in a container. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and separate the eggs, and then I will continue making the custard on the stove top. And essentially for this custard, it's just heavy whipping cream and the eggs, and we'll just be tempering. We'll heat up the whipping cream, and then we'll slowly incorporate some of that cream into the eggs to temper it, because I don't want the eggs to cook. Okay, so now I've heated up my cream and vanilla to barely boiling. I love when the recipe's like barely boiling. It's, it's a quick jump from not boiling to boiling. So I just used my little thermometer, and I brought it up to about 180 degrees, and I thought, that's probably close enough to boiling. So now we're just going to add the egg. Actually, we're doing it the other way around. We're going to add a little bit of this cream to the egg mixture, and I'll just be whisking that in. Just a little bit at a time. Like I say, you don't want to cook your eggs here. Just temper them. And we'll just So now this will go back in the saucepan, and I will keep cooking this until it thickens up and it's thick enough that it coats the back of a spoon. This is thickened up quite nicely, and now what I will do, you can see that, I will put saran wrap on top of this, and I will put that in the fridge to cool off. Here we go. Here's my cake. It turned out. It came out in one nice piece. So now I'll just go ahead and I will cut it up, add the Brazil nuts and add the Jell-O, and put it in the fridge to set up. And then once it's set up and the custard's all cool, then I'll continue constructing the trifle. So I just thought I'd try a piece of this cake just to see, like, does it taste like an angel food cake? I have to say, like, the consistency, obviously, because we're using almond flour, it's not light and fluffy like a angel food cake would be. And I mean, it's not an angel food cake in the true sense of what an angel food cake made with flour tastes like, but nonetheless, it's pretty darn good. Like, I would, maybe slice this in half. You put some whipping cream and strawberries, make a little shortcake. It's actually quite delicious. So, very happy with the way that turned out. And here we are. This one is now ready to go into the fridge. And I should mention, for the low carbified version, I'm just using the unsweetened, sugar-free Jell-O. I shouldn't say unsweetened, it's sweetened with something or other, but it's the no sugar. So I decided to let the cake mixture and the custard sit overnight. So now I'm ready to assemble the trifle. So this is the regular trifle, the trifle my mom made. So you can see the Jell-O has set in with the cake and the nuts. Now the next step for this one is we put a can of fruit cocktail on top of the Jell-O mixture, and I'm just using just a regular store brand fruit cocktail that I've drained. And so this just goes on top, and I will just, and this is why we need to let the cake set, because we want this to sit on top and not get absorbed in with the Jell-O. And then what we do is we put the custard on top of this. And again, this is why we've let it set so that the custard is, nice and firm. And we just put that on top and we just smooth it out. And then the next step is we put some orange pieces. I just cut up a couple of navel oranges, and these just go on top. Okay, so I've also got the low carb version here. Now what I did though was, to keep it more lower carb, is I didn't put any fruit on top of the Jell-O mixture. I just put a few raspberries on top of the custard. So the next step now is to do the whipping cream, and then we put that on top. Whipping cream is all whipped up, and all we do now is we just put the whipping cream on top. And what I did here is I just used actually just a carton of whipping cream. I didn't measure it or anything. Just figured carton would be enough. And like, who doesn't love whipping cream, right? So when I was growing up, and when my mom made the trifle, there was always, some whipping cream left over in the bowl. And like my mom was German, and it's my father who's British, and this trifle came from his side of the family. But my mom would always say, so who wants Ausschlecken? And that meant, who wants to come and lick the bowl? And there were many of us kids who just clamored around with a little spoon so that we could get some of that, the Ausschlecken, the yummy remains of the whipping cream. So here we go. We have our two trifles, and they look very pretty. And the last thing that I have to do to the trifle is I have to put some little sprinkles on it. Even like making it, I told my kids I was making the trifle, I was gonna do this recipe video, and my daughter's like, there's gonna be sparkles, right? I'm like, of course there's gonna be sparkles. I remember one year, and we just put, I mean, those sparkles don't add any taste. They just make it look a little prettier. I remember once I didn't have sparkles, and I made the trifle, and oh my goodness, like you think I'd left out some majorly important ingredient, and well, I guess to my kids it was like, yeah, but Mom, it's not trifle without the sparkles, without the little sprinkles. So I always make sure to have some sprinkles in the cupboard so that I can make the trifle look pretty. So later on, we will have a taste test. Once my kids get here, we'll taste it. And, you know, I know they won't taste the same, clearly. That said, though, does it make a good dessert, a good low carb dessert? And in terms of the numbers of carbs, I'll put the breakdown of all the macros and the calories down in the description below. But in terms of carbohydrates, I figured you probably get 12 servings. You don't need this. It's a very rich dessert, so a little goes a long way. So I figure 12 servings in the regular trifle in one serving, then you're going to get 44 grams of carbs. In the lower carb version, you're going to get 5. Now, the fat is higher because the custard in this particular recipe is made with whipping cream and egg yolks, and you know, it adds a lot of fat. But if you're watching your carbs, you know, 5 grams of carbs is pretty darn good. All right, so now it's time for the taste test of the trifle. So these are my kids, Valerie and Patrick. They're gonna taste the trifle with me. Okay, so let's taste the original authentic English trifle. I'll have a little taste.
So good.
Yeah. Best dessert ever.
Brings back memories going to grandma's and
Oh yeah.
having the English trifle. All right, and here is the low carbohydrate version, and we'll see how that tastes compared to the authentic English trifle.
Tastes the same.
Tasted the same. The angel fruitcake is very similar. Of course, there's no fruit in it, so that's the
Yeah,
big
you
difference.
really taste the fruit cocktail and the
fruit-
oranges.
Exactly.
Because I only put a few raspberries, but
You taste the angel food cake more in the low carb one. Like it absorbs less of the jello than the store bought angel food cake.
Yeah. I would even say the angel fruitcake is like better in the low
Yeah.
carb one.
it actually turned out pretty good.
Custard is pretty good. Custard is similar. Of course, the normal one with the fruit, it's so like
Oh yeah, the custard's good.
yeah.
It's what we grew up on too,
That's
right?
what we grew up on. So
But
Ours
success.
both have the sprinkles.
They
Yeah.
do. I couldn't leave the sprinkles off. So there you have it. A low carbified English trifle that actually tastes really darn good. So until next time, have a great day. Bye for now.